Hi everyone, my name's Bill and welcome to my channel. Before we get started, please consider subscribing to my channel and possibly becoming a patron. Now this is a follow-up video I did, an OpenTX video for setting up the buddy box system where you use a lead to attach your two radios so that you can help someone learn to fly. If they get into trouble, the instructor can take over. Now what I wanted to do was add to that. So I went through the programming on my actual plane up there, the clouds one, you can see the bigger one there. Because I'm going to actually help someone, let them have a couple of flights on that. But what I wanted to do was so that I had full throw of the control surfaces, but the student doesn't. So that would make that particular aeroplane easier to fly. I even have set up so that the throttle will only go to half throttle, so they're less likely to get themselves into trouble. So I sat down and worked out how to do this. So let's take a look at OpenTX Companion. I will show you on the radios as normal, but let's go to Companion and I will show you the settings. Let's have a look at the student radio first. All we need to do on the student's radio is set up a basic 4-channel model. Then we need to go to Setup and change the trainer mode here to Slave Jack. Now, I just want to go through this internal radio system here. Now, what I've done, I'm using the, let me find it, where is it? There it is. I'm going to use the WT01, this one here, to connect the radio. Let me show you. I've done a review on this already, and I think this is really great. So I'm just going to describe to you now how to do it if you're using a cable and how to do it on this radio if you're using this wireless system from RadioMaster. So if we take a look, you can see this is set up for the wireless system, for the WT01. So we've got the protocol is on, which is FreeSky. I've connected it via D16 and I set the failsafe up to no pulses. Now, if you were using a cable on this, you would just turn this off. That's all you need to do. So this is only on because I'm using the wireless system. If you are using a cable, just turn this off. You don't need it on. Now, let's have a look. So I'll go run through it. There's nothing else in any of the flight modes, inputs, outputs, curves, nothing, no logical switches, no special functions or anything. Now that's all we need to do in the student's radio. Now let's go and have a look at the instructor's one. Now this gets a little bit more complicated, so let's switch back to OpenTX Companion. Okay, we're going to change over now. And I'm going to open up my Clouds Zoid. Now my Clouds plane has a co-pilot in it, so it's got a lot of settings in there. But let's decipher what I've set up. So basically what can happen is when I've set up a trim switch to be able to set the radio to normal and then to to training, so that I can still use my momentary switch to reset my timer. But if I'm in training mode, it will then the same switch is then used for me to switch over so that to allow the student to take control of the aeroplane. So let's take a look. So if we go to setup, of course the model is all standard. We go down to the trainer port. This must be set up as master jack. Now we go to flight modes. The first thing we need to do here is go to the T6 trim and select trim disabled. Okay, these are my normal flight modes set up. These are not necessary for what we're about to do. We go to inputs. Now there's going to be some adjustments here. Mixes, there are a lot of adjustments in here. Outputs, there will be nothing we adjust. Curve, we do need a curve. We need the curve 1, which is basically, we call that curve cut. This is for the safe throttle. Then we go into the logical switches and then the special functions. Now let's see, how am I going to approach this? Let's go to the logical switches first. Now let's take a look at these logical switches. Now if we go to logical switch 7, it's and the trim 6 up. We go to logical switch 8 and trim down. Now this is to do with the sticky switch. So we go to logical switch 9, we select sticky, and then we select V1 and V2, which V1 is logical switch 7 and then V2 is logical switch 8. We now have our sticky switch. So let's go on to the next one, logical switch 10, which is AND, not the logical switch, and my SH switch, my momentary switch in the back position. Then logical switch 11 and this time the logical switch 9. So this one is not LO9, logical switch 9, this is logical switch 9, and again the switch in the back position. Then we go on to our safe throttle settings there, which will be A is smaller than X, where A is the throttle and B is -98. Now this is to give our safe throttle so that we can't accidentally have our electric motor go flat out. So -98, and then we go on to the second line of the logical switch, which is OR, L12, logical switch 12, logical switch 13, our arm switch in the forward position, and then we need to put a 0.5 delay on this. Now what that does, it means that you would have to bring the stick down for 0.5 of a second for the motor to then be able to arm, and then you can accelerate your motor. Let's take a look at our special functions. Okay, the first one we need to look at is logical switch 14. There are a lot of special functions on this radio, but for this purpose we need to be looking from SF14. So this special function links to logical switch 11, and we put trainer sticks and we turn that option on. Then special function 15, again logical switch 11, play track, turn on. So that will be the one where it says trainer on. Okay, then we go to special function 16, not logical switch 11, play track, now that's the turn off one. Trainer off. And again we see play once, not during startup, so that's where we have in front of it we have on the radio you will see a exclamation mark, so both of those will not sound when the radio turns on. Then we go to special function 17, trim up, play track, trainer mode, and then special function 18, trim down, play track, normal mode. Now let's go back to the setup. We have to make sure that our Instructor radio is set up to master jack. Now we're going to take a look at the complicated bit. You may need to copy this parrot fashion if you want to do this. It is a little bit complex, but if you attempt to set this up, just make sure you thoroughly test your settings to make sure everything is working how you expect it to. So let's have a look at the inputs. Okay, now you can see that I've got Expo on my elevator and my aileron. Now that's fine, and we need to be looking here for this particular setup at the throttle. So we are going to have a look at the first settings. Now this is all going to be standard, except for you're going to pick the logical switch 13. Now this is to do with the safe throttle. So that's okay. So everything is as usual, except for we have to select a switch. Then we have to add a line. Now in this case, we're going to see we need to go to the curve, select the curve, and then the cut curve, which I will show you in just a moment. Then the switch must be not logical switch 13. Now all of that is just to have your safe throttle. So let's just go pop across to the curve. I want to just show you the curve again. We've set a curve up, we've made it just 2 points, and we've dragged the points to the base. So that's all we need to do with the curve, is make it from 5 points to 2, drag them down and call it cut. Let's go back to inputs. That will be everything. We should be good to go there. Now we move on to mixers. There we go. Now this is where things get a little bit more complex. So let's go to the rudder. So we've got a standard rudder line. Obviously the weights will depend on how your servos are set up, but in my case this had to be a minus. Now you can see here I'm selecting not logical switch 11. So this means when we are in normal mode, then I will have full throw of the aeroplane. So that's what we need to select there. But if we go to the second line of that mix that I've put in, you'll see I've changed the weight to 80, which you could adjust this to fly your plane and find out which would make it more sedate to fly for a beginner. And So I selected 80 and then logical switch L11. So you can see there that depending on what we're set to, the aeroplane will have full throw or 80% throw. Now that is replicated for the elevator and the ailerons. You can see we've got not logical switch L11 and then logical switch L12. Let's just go into the aileron again. Let me just show you that one. So you can see 100% weight and not logical switch 11. When that's for the instructor. When the student is flying, then it will be 80%, and that's when logical switch 11 is activated. Okay, next thing is we do need to look at our motor, and this is for the safe throttle. So if we go through the safe throttle, we have the normal throttle settings here, 100%, but we say not logical switch 11. And then we have to have a second line. And the second line is so I can reduce the amount of throttle that the student can use. So I've limited, if we take a look at this, now you can see I've put the weight in at 50% and the offset at minus 50%. Now these, even though, you know, when you add a minus to a plus, you actually take it away. We're just they should add up to 100 if you took the minus away, if that makes common sense. So that's giving us 50% of the throttle available when we activate the training switch. And then the switch we need to select there is logical switch 11. Now that is everything. I hope that's not too complex, but you can actually pause the video and go and have a look at the settings and then be able to put that onto your radio. But what I'm going to do, I don't think I will go through all those settings on the radios. It's going to make this video too long, but I am going to demonstrate this working so that you can see that it is actually operating. I am going to help someone to fly, so I'm going to go and test this in the field. I may make a video on that where we see it in practice. But anyway, as I've said already, make sure that if you set this up, it's quite complex. There are a lot of things you need to do. Make sure you've thoroughly tested this before you fly your plane. Any of the videos I do, I would suggest you make sure you thoroughly test what you do. You may have put a logical switch, not a logical switch, and you changed it to a logical switch. So it can be just a sort of like a typing error. So you need to be careful with that. But anyway, let's switch over to the radios and let me demonstrate this. I have decided to show you the settings on the radio because I know there are people out there who do not use Companion or don't like to use it, and also they may not have a computer. Now let's take a look at the model setup screens. We hit the model button. First we're going to look at is the model setup window, and we need to go to the trainer mode and make sure this is the instructor's radio, so it's set up to master jack. Now let's move on to curves. So we're going to push enter on CV1, and you can see it's the name is cut, it's standard. I changed it. These are normally 5 points. I've changed it to 2, and you can see I've dragged them down. So that's everything you need to do on the curves. Now let's move on to logical switches. Here we go. We're starting at number 7. Let me just pull all these up. So logical switch 7 is and our trim switch up. So this way. Then we go on to logical switch number 8. That is and the trim switch down. Then we make those two into a sticky switch by going logical switch 9, select sticky, and then LO7, LO8. That now becomes a sticky switch. Now we move on to this is the switch for our when we reset the timer, or we put the radio into student mode so the student can fly. So here it's logical switch 10 is not logical switch 9, switch forward, momentary switch forward. Then the next one, logical switch 11 and this time logical switch 9 and the switch forward. Then we go on to the safe throttle, and the safe throttle is A is smaller than X. The first option is our throttle stick, and then we put the value in at minus 98. Then the second line, logical switch 13, or logical switch 12, and then logical switch 13. We then use our armed button, and we put a delay on this of 0.5. From this we need to move on to our inputs. and the only thing we're going to look at there is the safe throttle. So for the safe throttle, we're going to go, we would normally have one line for our throttle. In this case now, the source is the stick, the weight is 100%, offset 0, diff 0, but we now need to put in logical switch 13. And we can come out of that. We will then add a line and we edit, and this time it's going to be source is the throttle stick, weight 100%, offset 0, but now the curve is custom and it's the cut one we choose. But now the switch needs to be not logical switch 13. Now that will be everything in our inputs. Now let's move on to the biggie, the mixes. Okay, now in the mixes, I am just going to show you the rudder mixer. You can see they're all duplicated. This is so that when we are in normal mode, I would have the throw that I want to as the instructor, but when the students flying, they will have less throw on the elevator's rudder and etc. So let's go into the first line. So your normal mix on your rudder, we need to it will be standard. Now this is the weight is minus because of the setup in my aeroplane, but the things we need to look at are we need to pick not logical switch 11 for the first line of the rudder. Then we go on to the second one. So that first line is basically the instructor flying. The second one would be for the student. Now here you would duplicate that top line, and now we're going to adjust the weight. I'm adjusting that by 20% down. So we make minus 80. Now everything else will be standard except for the switch must be logical switch 11. Now you would repeat that for the same process you can see here for the elevator and for the ailerons, so that there is a limited amount of throw when the student is flying. Right, what else do we need to look at on here? And we need to, of course, look at our throttle. Now the throttle is the same. What I've done, the instructor would be 100%, but the student will only get 50% power. So we would need to add a line in the mix. So if I click and edit, you'll see this. The source is the throttle input, and then everything else will be standard, but here we're going to say not logical switch 11. You come out, you would then add a line, we go to the second motor one. This now one is going to be activated when the student is flying. So now it's weight 50, offset minus 50, and then now this time logical switch 11 on. Okay, that is everything in our mixes. Now finally we can move on to the special functions. Let's go across to those, and here we go. We're going to go down. The special functions start from 14 for this. Now this is important. We need to set up a special function, and this is connected to logical switch L11. Now you must remember, if you don't have all the other logical switches, you will have to follow the same path, but in my case it's logical switch 11. So then you click, the option is trainer sticks, and then you turn the option on. Then your next special function is 15, which again is logical switch 11, play track, turn on. And then we've put the exclamation mark so that it doesn't play when the radio turns on. The next line is going to be, now this time, not logical switch 11, play track, and this one is now trainer turned off. And you can see the exclamation mark, so it doesn't play when the radio turns on. Then we're going to go down. We need these. These relate to
trainer mode, normal mode.
Okay, so special function 17 is the trim up. It plays a track. So
trainer mode.
So that's in trainer mode. And then the final one, the special function 18, is your trim switch down.
Normal mode.
And play track normal mode. So that's all the settings on your radio. Now with the student radio.
Welcome to OpenTX. Throttle warning.
All you need to do, set up a basic model. We are going to have a look at the model. Again, model key. We're going to go page across, and then we're going to go, let's go up to go down. And in this case, we are going to be using the dongle, the WTO1, this one. But if you were using a cable, you would make sure that the internal module's turned off, and you need to go to the bottom here, oh sorry, there, and make sure that your student's radio says slave jack. And that's all the settings you need to put on the student's radio. Okay, let me show you this working. I'm going to turn on the WT01. You just hold the button down. Now it's already bound to my radio. We can see there's the RSSI signals coming through. So at the moment the instructor's radio it will be operating normally. So I hit the model button. You can see the arm, safe throttle, go down. There we go. Throttle's working, and I have control of the aeroplane. Now if I come back out of here, and you can see my timer's running. If I drop this now and hit my reset button, it resets the timer and everything's as normal. Now if I push my trim tab,
Trainer mode,
up, I'm now in trainer mode. So if I flick this switch up now,
trainer on,
now the student's radio will be in control. So we can test this now.
trainer off,
We hit the model button, hit the model key again. Now if I hold this up,
trainer on,
you'll see the throttle now, only half, 50% of the throttle, because I've adjusted it to that. And then if we go aileron, let me just switch this so you can see. Aileron has only got a smaller percentage. Elevator, and the same with the rudder. Now as soon as I let go, I'd have control again. So all of the setup there for the sticky switch was related to this switch. So we are still in trainer mode. So if I click this back,
normal mode,
now we're in normal mode. So this will just become, let me come back out of this again. If we put the timer on, and we stop, and I click up. So I set this up with switch T, the trim tab 6, so that you could you could switch between the two modes. So you wouldn't accidentally, I mean, if you were flying, you wouldn't accidentally hit this button and put it into lose control of your model. It's unlikely. But as I said, you can go into the options and turn it off within the model. So you can hit the model key, go across to your special functions, too far, sorry, and then go down to the trainer one and just uncheck that box, and that's it. And there we go, demonstrating. Let me do it. Let me just do it one more time. Come back out, hit model key, this. Okay, we are in reset mode. Click trim switch
trainer
forward.
mode,
Trainer mode's on.
trainer on,
Hold the button up, and there we go. Let go,
trainer off.
and the instructor's in control again.
Well, thanks for watching this video. It was rather a long one, but we got there in the end. Now, if you found this video useful, please give it a thumbs up. It will help me. And if you didn't find it useful, please give it a thumbs down. I need to know that too. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them in the comments section below, because I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Happy flying. Bye for now.